The morning sun filtered through the observation windows of the Galileo, casting long shadows across the empty corridors. Lisa Monroe stood alone on the bridge, her hands gripping the edge of the control panel as she stared out at the vast emptiness of space. She was 38 years old, with sharp blue eyes and dark brown hair that she always kept tied back in a neat bun. In 7 years of commanding the Galileo, she had never felt as nervous as she did on this particular Tuesday. Today, humanity would meet an alien species face-to-face for the very first time, and everything depended on how well Lisa handled the situation. The Valorians had sent their message 3 weeks ago. Their purple spacecraft appeared on the scanners like a ghost materializing from the fog. They asked for a peaceful meeting on neutral ground. The request was simple and polite, almost too polite for beings nobody had ever encountered before. The High Council on Earth debated for 2 weeks before deciding that Lisa's ship, the Galileo, would be the perfect place for this historic encounter. Lisa was known throughout the space programs for her calm judgment, her intelligence, and her ability to stay steady when everything around her was falling apart. She had earned the respect of everyone who served under her. Ryan Foster walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of information about the visitors. He was Lisa's second in command, a tall man in his early 40s with sandy blonde hair and a face that always seemed ready to smile. Ryan had served beside Lisa for 5 years, and they had built a strong working relationship based on trust and mutual respect. He placed the tablet on the table in front of Lisa and frowned slightly. "The Valorian delegation will arrive in 1 hour," Ryan said, his voice steady but carrying a hint of concern. "We have completed all the security checks. The meeting room is prepared and our medical team is standing by just in case there are any problems." Lisa nodded slowly, still staring out at the stars. "Do we know anything else about them?" "Anything beyond the basic information?" "Very little," Ryan admitted. He sat down in the chair next to Lisa and leaned forward. "Their technology appears to be more advanced than ours, but not by an enormous amount. They have weapons capability, but their ship maintains a peaceful approach vector. All their communications have been courteous and formal. They seem genuinely interested in trade and cultural exchange." Lisa finally turned away from the window to look at her friend. "That makes me more nervous, not less. When something seems too perfect, too easy, there is usually a reason for it." Ryan smiled slightly. "You sound like my grandmother. She used to say that anything that looks too good is probably a trap." "Your grandmother was a wise woman," Lisa replied, allowing herself a small smile as well. But her smile faded quickly as she looked back at the approaching ship on the radar screen. Something deep in her gut was telling her that today would change everything. She just could not explain why she felt this way. The hour passed quickly. Lisa showered and changed into her dress uniform, a sharp blue and gray outfit that fit her perfectly. She brushed her hair with extra care and even applied a small amount of makeup. This was not vanity but professional duty. How she looked would send a message to the Valorians about how Earth took this meeting seriously. She looked in the mirror for a moment, studying her own face as if trying to memorize it before something important happened. The Valorian delegation arrived exactly on time. They came in a small shuttle that landed smoothly in the Galileo's docking bay. Lisa stood in the main corridor with Ryan and 5 members of her security team. She wore her rank proudly on her shoulders, and her posture was perfect. When the airlock opened, the first thing she noticed was the smell. It was like ozone mixed with something floral, strange but not unpleasant. The Valorians emerged one by one. They were tall, much taller than average humans, with purple skin that seemed to shimmer slightly under the artificial lights. Their bodies were slender but clearly powerful, with long arms and delicate fingers. Their eyes were the most striking feature, large and almond-shaped with irises that glowed faintly with an inner light. They wore simple robes of silver material that seemed to reflect light in ways that human fabric could not. The lead Valorian stepped forward. His name was Kess, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone born to lead. His eyes glowed a deeper purple than the others, and when he spoke, his voice was smooth and musical, almost hypnotic in its quality. Lisa felt a strange pull toward him, an almost magnetic attraction that she tried hard to ignore. "Commander Lisa Monroe," Kess said, extending his hand in what he explained was the Valorian gesture of peace and friendship. "We have traveled far to meet with you and your people. We believe that humanity has great potential, and we wish to begin a relationship based on mutual respect and beneficial trade." Lisa stepped forward and shook Kess's hand firmly. His skin was cool, almost cold, and she could feel a strange tingling sensation that ran up her arm and into her shoulder. For just a moment she felt something shift in her mind, like a door opening that she had not known existed. The feeling lasted only seconds, and then it was gone. Lisa pulled her hand back and studied Kess's face carefully, but his expression revealed nothing unusual. "Welcome aboard the Galileo," Lisa said, her voice steady and professional. "We are honored by your visit. Please come with me. We have prepared a meeting room where we can discuss trade opportunities and cultural exchange." As Lisa led the Valorian delegation down the corridors of her ship, she did not notice the small smile that played at the corners of Kess's mouth. She did not see the way his eyes glowed brighter as he walked. She did not understand that in the moment when their hands touched, something had begun inside her mind. A seed had been planted, a connection established, and that connection was now growing, spreading through her neural pathways like roots searching for water in dry soil. Ryan walked beside Lisa, and he noticed that she seemed slightly different. Her movements were still smooth and confident, but there was something else there too, something he could not quite identify. He decided to watch her carefully during the meeting. His instincts told him that something was not quite right, though he could not explain what it was. Lisa took her seat at the head of the table in the conference room. The Valorians arranged themselves on the opposite side. Coffee and water were served, and the formal greeting began. Lisa asked about their world, their government, their technology. Kess answered every question with patience and charm. He spoke about the Valorian culture, about their achievements in space travel, about their peaceful nature and their desire to make friends among the stars. Everything he said sounded reasonable. Everything he said made perfect sense. And with every word he spoke, Lisa felt something happening inside her mind. The thoughts in her head seemed to become clearer and more organized, as if someone was arranging them in neat little lines. The more she listened to Kess, the more his words began to feel like her own thoughts. It was becoming harder to tell the difference between what she wanted to think and what his voice was suggesting she should think. By the end of the meeting, Lisa found herself agreeing to almost everything the Valorians proposed. She felt happy about these agreements, convinced that they were exactly what humanity needed. She did not notice that her decisions were changing, that she was becoming someone different from the woman who had woken up that morning. The alien presence in her mind was still new and subtle, barely noticeable, like a whisper that you cannot quite hear but that influences you anyway. Lisa Monroe had no idea that her mind was no longer completely her own. Hours after the Valorian delegation had returned to their ship for the night, Lisa sat alone in her quarters. She felt different, and the feeling was beginning to worry her. Her thoughts seemed clearer than ever before, but in a strange way. Her emotions felt muted, as if they were coming to her from very far away. She looked at her hands and flexed her fingers, wondering if something was physically wrong with her. Everything seemed normal on the outside, but inside something fundamental had changed. Lisa did not know what it was, and she did not know how to make it stop. All she knew was that tomorrow, she would see Kess again, and somehow she was looking forward to it very much indeed. The days following the Valorian arrival seemed to blend together like watercolor on wet paper. Lisa Monroe sat in her command chair on the bridge of the Galileo, watching the data streams and reports flow across her screens. Her mind felt different now, sharper in some ways, but also somehow distant from her own body. She could still think, still make decisions, but there was something else there too, a presence, a whisper that was not quite her own voice, but that felt more real than her own thoughts. It had been 3 days since she shook Kess's hand. 3 days since that strange tingling sensation had traveled up her arm. 3 days since everything had started to change. Lisa knew something was wrong, but she could not make herself care as much as she probably should. When she tried to worry about it, her thoughts would drift away like clouds being blown by wind. Kess had been on board the Galileo for all 3 days. He spent his time learning about human culture, human history, and human technology. He asked detailed questions about Earth's defenses, about the locations of military installations, about the nuclear weapons that humanity possessed. Each time he asked, Lisa found herself answering. The information flowed from her lips like water pouring from a cup. She would hear herself speaking these secrets, hear the words coming out of her mouth, but it felt like she was listening to someone else talk. The words were not quite her own decision to share. and yet she could not stop herself from speaking. Ryan Foster had begun to notice the changes in Lisa. He saw the way she seemed distant during meetings, the way she would sometimes stop mid-sentence and stare at nothing for a moment before continuing. He watched as she approved document after document that Kes presented to her, each one giving the Valorians more information and more access to Earth systems. Ryan had learned to trust his instincts over the years, and his instincts were screaming at him that something was very wrong. On the morning of the fourth day, Ryan decided he needed to talk to Lisa alone. He waited until she finished her morning briefing and then requested a private meeting in her office. Lisa agreed, and they sat across from each other at her desk. Ryan studied her face carefully, looking for signs of illness or injury, but Lisa looked the same as always. Perhaps a little more pale than usual, perhaps a little more tired, but otherwise normal. "Lisa," Ryan said carefully, using her first name instead of her rank, which meant he was speaking to her as a friend rather than as her second-in-command. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you feeling okay? Are you well?" Lisa smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "I feel fine, Ryan, better than fine, actually. I feel like I am making better decisions than I ever have before. The Valorians are good people, and I believe we should accept their offer of alliance." "What alliance?" Ryan asked, leaning forward. "2 days ago you told me that we needed to move slowly with the Valorians, that we needed to be careful about making any commitments." Lisa's smile faded slightly. For a moment something flickered across her face, something that looked like confusion or pain. She touched her temple with her fingers as if she had just felt a small shock. "I changed my mind," she said. "After thinking about it more, I realized that the Valorians are offering us technology and resources that could help billions of people. It would be foolish to refuse." "Lisa," Ryan said, his voice becoming more serious, "I want you to come with me to the medical bay. I want Dr. Cooper to run some tests on you. Nothing serious, just a standard physical examination." "No," Lisa said immediately. Her voice was sharp and definite. Then she seemed to struggle with herself for a moment, and she continued in a softer tone. "I mean, there is no need, Ryan. I am fine, really. You are worrying about nothing." Ryan could see the struggle happening right in front of him. It was like watching someone trying to swim against a strong current. Lisa was fighting something, trying to say something, but there was something else inside her mind holding her back. He wanted to push her, to force her to get medical help. But he also knew that if he pushed too hard, she would shut him out completely. She might even have him restricted from certain areas of the ship. "All right," Ryan said, standing up. "But I want you to promise me that if you start to feel anything strange, anything at all, you will tell me immediately." "I promise," Lisa said. She spoke the words automatically without thinking about them. But once the words were out of her mouth, something else happened. For just a fraction of a second, Lisa felt a surge of hope. Those words, that promise, had somehow broken through whatever was holding her back. For just a moment, she was herself again. She wanted to scream at Ryan to get her to the medical bay, to help her, to save her from whatever was happening inside her own mind. But then the moment passed, and she felt the presence settle back into place, warm and heavy like a blanket pulled over her head. The moment of clarity was gone, and Lisa was alone inside her own skull again. After Ryan left her office, Lisa sat staring at the wall. Her hands were shaking slightly, though she could not explain why. She could feel something happening inside her brain, like gears slowly turning, like machinery coming to life. The presence that lived in her mind was growing stronger. It was no longer just a whisper on the edge of her thoughts. It was becoming a voice, clear and commanding. And worst of all, she was beginning to understand what it wanted from her. That evening, Lisa called a meeting with the senior members of her crew. She presented a proposal that shocked everyone who heard it. She wanted to grant the Valorians access to Earth's nuclear weapon systems. She wanted to give them the codes that controlled the defensive shields around major cities. She wanted to establish what she called a cooperative defense agreement that would essentially put humanity's security entirely in the hands of the alien visitors. When Ryan heard this proposal, he stood up immediately. "Commander, I must object to this plan. We know nothing about the Valorians. We have no idea if they can be trusted with such sensitive technology. This is reckless and dangerous." Lisa looked at Ryan with cold eyes. "Captain Foster, your objection is noted and disregarded. This meeting is concluded. You are dismissed." Ryan could not believe what he was hearing. Lisa had never spoken to him that way before. They had worked together for 5 years without conflict, and now she was dismissing him like he was nothing. Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but then he saw something in Lisa's eyes that made him close his mouth again. There was something in there that was not Lisa Monroe. Something was looking out from behind her eyes, and it was not her. Ryan left the meeting room and went directly to the medical bay. He found Dr. Henry Cooper, a short man in his 60s with gray hair and a kind face. Ryan explained everything he had observed about Lisa's behavior over the past 3 days. He described how she seemed distant, how she was making decisions that went completely against her character, how she had given him that strange look that made his skin crawl. Dr. Cooper listened carefully, and when Ryan finished, the doctor was frowning deeply. "Have you suggested that she see me?" Cooper asked. "She refused," Ryan said, "and now she has made it clear that she does not want anyone questioning her judgment." Cooper was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he said, "Ryan, I do not want to frighten you, but what you are describing sounds like someone is influencing her mind. It sounds like some kind of mental control." "That is not possible," Ryan said automatically. But even as he spoke the words, he realized that he did not believe them. On Earth, such things were impossible. But out here, in the vastness of space, with an alien species that they knew nothing about, what was impossible anymore? Over the next week, Lisa's behavior became progressively stranger. She worked late into the night, sending messages to Earth that contradicted previous agreements. She moved through the ship like a ghost, existing but not truly present. Sometimes Ryan would catch her staring at nothing, her eyes unfocused, her mind clearly somewhere else. And Kes was always there, always at her side, his purple eyes glowing with satisfaction. The other crew members began to whisper. They did not understand what was happening to their commander, but they could feel that something was very wrong. The bridge of the Galileo, which had always been a place of calm efficiency and trust, was becoming tense and uncomfortable. People were afraid, though they could not say exactly what they were afraid of. Lisa felt like she was drowning in her own mind. She was trapped behind a wall of glass, able to see everything that was happening, but unable to reach it. She could watch herself approve the documents that would give the Valorians control over Earth's most precious resources. She could feel her own hand move across the keyboard as she typed passwords and security codes, but she could not stop it. She could not make her body obey her mind anymore. The thing inside her head was in control now, and Lisa Monroe was nothing more than a passenger in her own body. Lisa Monroe woke up in her quarters without remembering how she got there. She was lying on her bed, fully clothed, and the clock on her wall showed that it was 3 a.m. Her mind felt foggy, like she was trying to think through thick clouds. For a moment, she did not understand what was real and what was a dream. Had she been asleep? Had she been awake? The line between these two things had become very blurry. She sat up slowly, her head spinning slightly. There was a dull ache behind her eyes, a pressure that felt like someone was pushing on her skull from the inside. Lisa went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale and drawn. Dark circles hung under her eyes like bruises. Her hair, usually so neat and carefully arranged, was tangled and messy. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. It had been 9 days since Kes first touched her hand. 9 days since her mind had started to change. 9 days of fighting a battle that she was slowly losing. Lisa could feel the alien presence inside her head growing stronger every day. It was like a voice that started as a whisper and was now becoming a shout. The presence did not speak in words exactly, but it sent her feelings and thoughts and suggestions that felt like they were coming from her own brain. She tried to think about what had happened in those 9 days, but her memories were scattered and unclear. She remembered approving documents. She remembered giving security codes to Kes. She remembered Kes's purple eyes glowing brighter and brighter each time she shared more secrets. But she also remembered moments where she felt like herself again. Moments where she could almost break free from whatever was holding her down. Those moments never lasted long, though. The presence would settle back into place and she would sink deeper into the fog. Lisa splashed cold water on her face and tried to focus. She needed to think clearly. She needed to find a way to stop this before it went any further. But even as she thought this, another part of her mind whispered that there was no point in trying. The presence was too strong. She was just one human mind, and she was up against technology and power that she did not understand. It would be easier to stop fighting. It would be easier to just let go and let the presence take control completely. No. Lisa shook her head violently, trying to push away these thoughts. This was not her. These were not her thoughts. This was the alien thing inside her head, trying to convince her to surrender. She went back to her bed and sat on the edge, trying to remember everything she had learned about the mind, about psychology, about the human brain. She had taken courses on these subjects. There had to be something she could use. She thought about compartmentalization. She thought about the way the human mind could separate traumatic memories into boxes that it could access later. She thought about meditation and breathing techniques that she had learned years ago. She thought about the training she had received as a military officer on how to resist interrogation. All of these things had to count for something. Lisa lay back down on her bed and closed her eyes. She began to breathe slowly and deeply, counting each breath. In through her nose for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Out through her mouth for 4 counts. Wait for 4 counts. Again, again, again. She did this over and over, trying to calm her racing mind. Slowly, she felt the presence become a little quieter, a little less demanding. In that quiet space, Lisa began to build walls. She visualized each wall in her mind, brick by brick, building stronger barriers between herself and the alien consciousness. She told herself that she was stronger than this thing. She told herself that she was not alone. Ryan knew something was wrong. Dr. Cooper knew something was wrong. They would help her if she could just find a way to reach them. By the time dawn broke over the Galileo, Lisa had built something that felt like a shield inside her mind. It was not strong and it was not perfect, but it was there. It was something. She felt exhausted, as if she had been running a marathon, but she also felt something else. She felt a spark of hope. When Lisa arrived on the bridge that morning, she was determined to act as normally as possible. She could not let Kes know that she was fighting back. If the Valorian discovered that her mind was starting to resist, he might try to strengthen his control. He might do something that could damage her permanently. So Lisa smiled and spoke politely, and made decisions that seemed to please the Valorian observers who were now spending most of their time aboard the Galileo. But she was also careful. Very careful. She approved some requests from Kes but found reasons to delay others. She shared some information but made sure that her explanations contained small errors. Tiny mistakes that would be almost impossible to notice. But that might cause problems if Kes actually tried to use the information. She was fighting a subtle war. A chess game where one wrong move could cost her everything. Ryan noticed that Lisa seemed slightly different that day. There was something in her eyes that reminded him of the Lisa he had known before all of this started. There was determination there. There was fight. He caught her alone near the storage section of the ship and quickly whispered, "Lisa, if you need help, if there is anything I can do, you only have to ask. I am here for you." Lisa wanted to throw her arms around him and cry and tell him everything. She wanted to beg him to take her to the medical bay and do whatever it took to get this thing out of her head. But she could feel the presence stir at the sound of Ryan's voice. The alien consciousness did not like Ryan. It did not trust him. If she showed too much emotion, if she seemed too desperate, it might prevent her from ever seeing Ryan alone again. "I know," Lisa said, her voice steady but quiet. "I know you are here. That helps more than you know." Over the next few days, Lisa continued her subtle resistance. She worked with the walls she had built inside her mind, strengthening them piece by piece. She also began to notice something strange. The presence inside her head was beginning to sound less confident. It was still strong, still powerful, but something had shifted. It was as if the alien consciousness had discovered that it had underestimated its host. It had expected to find a human brain that would collapse quickly under the weight of telepathic control. Instead, it had found a human brain that was far more complex and resilient than anything it had encountered before. Lisa's human mind was learning to adapt to the invasion. Just as a body learns to fight off a virus by creating antibodies, Lisa's brain was learning to create its own mental defenses. She could feel it happening. She could feel small parts of her consciousness pulling free from the control. It was like waking up from a nightmare bit by bit. First, a finger would feel like it was hers again, then a hand, then an arm. It was happening slowly, too slowly, but it was happening, and the presence knew it. Lisa could sense its frustration and anger. On the 10th day after Kes first touched her hand, the Valorian demanded another contact. He wanted to come to Lisa's quarters alone. He said he wanted to strengthen their alliance by deepening their mental connection. Lisa knew what this meant. Kes was going to try to reinforce his control. He was going to try to push his consciousness deeper into her mind to counteract her growing resistance. If he succeeded, she would be completely lost. She might never find her way back to herself again. She might become nothing more than a puppet, a tool for the Valorians to use as they pleased. But as Lisa prepared for this meeting, she realized something important. Kes was afraid. He was afraid of her. He was afraid that her mind might prove too strong for him to control completely, and that fear gave Lisa an idea. When the Valorian arrived at her quarters, Lisa would be ready. She would let him think he was winning. She would let him push deeper into her mind. And in that moment, when he was most focused on controlling her, most convinced of his power over her, that would be when she made her move. Lisa did not know if her plan would work. She did not know if a human mind could fight back against an alien consciousness in such a direct way, but she had to try. She had spent the last 10 days trapped in her own skull, watching herself betray everything she believed in, everything she stood for. She was not going to give up now. She was going to fight. And if she was going to lose, she was going to make sure that the Valorians knew they had been in a war. The moment Kes stepped into Lisa's quarters, she could feel the change in the air. His presence was heavy and commanding. His purple eyes glowed so brightly that they seemed to light up the small room. He wore a confident smile on his face, but Lisa could sense something underneath that confidence. There was doubt. There was concern. Kes had come to fix a problem that he had created, and he was not entirely sure he would succeed. Lisa stood near her bed, waiting. She was dressed in a simple gray shirt and dark trousers. Her hands were relaxed at her sides, and her face was calm. On the outside, she looked like a person who was ready to accept her defeat. Inside, every nerve was on alert. Every part of her mind was focused on the task ahead. The walls she had built over the past few days were solid and strong. She had reinforced them again and again until she was confident they could withstand the pressure that was about to come. "Commander Monroe," Kes said, his voice smooth like honey, "I am glad we can have this time alone. I have sensed some resistance in your mind, some small walls that should not be there. This troubles me. Our partnership should be seamless. Your thoughts should flow with mine like two rivers joining to become one." "I know," Lisa said quietly. "I have felt it too. I do not understand why this is happening. I want to help you. I want to serve the Valorian cause, but something inside me keeps pulling away." Kes moved closer to her. His long purple hand reached out and touched her forehead with 2 fingers. The moment his skin made contact with hers, Lisa felt a surge of power pour into her mind. The alien consciousness that had been living inside her head suddenly strengthened and expanded. It was like someone turning up the volume on music until the sound becomes overwhelming. Lisa gasped and stumbled backward, but she forced herself to stay upright. She kept her mind focused on her walls. She visualized them becoming even thicker, even stronger. She imagined them made of the strongest materials ever created, unbreakable and permanent. "You see?" Kes whispered, his eyes glowing brighter than ever before. "This is what will happen. I will push deeper into your mind. I will expand my presence until there is no room left for your resistance. Soon you will not even remember that you were ever your own person. You will be completely and totally mine." Lisa could feel him pushing deeper. The alien consciousness was like a wave, rolling across her mind, trying to drown her in its power. She felt herself slipping, felt control being taken from her bit by bit. Her arms felt heavy. Her legs felt weak. Her vision started to blur at the edges, but then something happened. Something that neither Kes nor Lisa had predicted. The human mind, pushed to the absolute edge of its limits, began to fight back in a way that the Valorian consciousness had never encountered before. Lisa's brain, instead of simply defending, began to counterattack. Lisa's memories flooded forward all at once. Memories of her childhood. Memories of her family. Memories of everyone she had ever loved and everyone who had ever loved her. Memories of the first time she saw the stars and decided to become an astronaut. Memories of her graduation day. Memories of her first command. All of these memories were deeply personal. All of these memories were uniquely human. All of these memories belonged only to Lisa Monroe. The Valorian consciousness recoiled from this flood of emotion and experience. Kes cried out in pain, his hand jerking away from Lisa's forehead as if he had been burned. He staggered backward, his glowing eyes dimming for the first time since he had arrived. Lisa fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Her entire body was shaking. Sweat poured down her face. Her heart was racing so fast that she thought it might burst right out of her chest. But even as her body fell apart, her mind was suddenly wonderfully clear. For the first time in 10 days, Lisa Monroe was completely herself. She looked up at Kes with eyes that were sharp and focused and full of determination. The Valorian was staring at her with shock and disbelief. For a moment he seemed unable to understand what had just happened. His consciousness, which had been so confident in its power, had just been violently rejected by the human mind it had invaded. "What have you done?" Kes demanded, his voice no longer smooth and confident. Now it carried an edge of fear. "I remembered who I am," Lisa said, standing up slowly. Her voice was steady and strong. "I remembered that I am not just a mind to be controlled. I am a woman with a history. I am a commander with people who depend on me. I am a human being with the right to my own thoughts." Kes moved toward her again, but Lisa held up her hand. "If you touch me again, I will make sure that every person on this ship knows what you have done to me. I will tell them about your technology. I will tell them about your methods. And I will make sure that your species never controls another human being again." Kes stopped. For a long moment he simply stared at Lisa. His glowing purple eyes seemed to dim even further as he processed what had happened. The Valorian had come to Lisa's quarters expecting to simply erase the last traces of her resistance. Instead, he had discovered something that changed everything. He had discovered that the human mind was more powerful and more resilient than any of his people had believed. "I need to rest," Lisa said firmly, "and you need to leave. We will discuss what comes next when we are both ready." Kes turned and left the quarters without another word, but Lisa could feel the confusion and uncertainty radiating from him. For the first time since this invasion had begun, she had the upper hand. Lisa went to her bathroom and splashed cold water on her face repeatedly until she felt a little bit more stable. She looked at herself in the mirror and did not recognize the woman looking back. But this time it was not because something was wrong. It was because she looked like someone who had been through a terrible battle and had somehow managed to survive it. She knew that this was not over. She knew that Kes would not give up easily. The Valorians had invested too much time and effort into their plan to abandon it now. But Lisa also knew something that Kes had not known before. She knew that she was strong enough to fight him. She knew that her mind could resist his consciousness. And she knew that if she could do this, then she was not the only human who could do this. Lisa went directly to the medical bay. Dr. Henry Cooper was working late, reviewing some scans at his desk. When he saw Lisa, he immediately stood up. He could see that something was different about her. There was a light in her eyes that had been missing for the past 10 days. "Lisa," Dr. Cooper said carefully, "you look like you have been through something terrible." "I have," Lisa said. She sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. "And I need your help. I need you to help me save everyone else who might go through the same thing. I need you to help me figure out how to stop the Valorians from controlling us all." Dr. Cooper leaned forward and listened as Lisa told him everything. She explained about the mind control. She explained how it worked. She explained the moment when she had broken free. She explained what she had learned about the human mind's ability to resist. When Lisa finished speaking, Dr. Cooper was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If what you are telling me is true, then we need to move very carefully. We need to find a way to counter their technology without letting them know that we know." "I have an idea," Lisa said, "but I will need your help, and I will need the help of Ryan Foster and a few other people I trust." "Can you help me?" "Yes," Dr. Cooper said without hesitation. "Tell me what you need." Over the next hour, Lisa and Dr. Cooper made a plan. They would work in secret. They would develop a countermeasure to the Valorian mind control, and they would save not just themselves, but every human being who had been touched by the alien's consciousness. Lisa felt stronger than she had felt in a very long time. She had been broken, but she had not been destroyed. She had been invaded, but she had not been conquered. And now, with the help of her friends and her doctor, she was going to make sure that no one else had to suffer what she had suffered. The real battle was about to begin. The laboratory deep inside the Galileo was quiet and still. Only a few people knew about this place. It was tucked away in a section of the ship that was rarely used, hidden behind walls that most crew members did not even know existed. Dr. Henry Cooper had chosen it specifically because it was far away from the areas where the Valorians spent most of their time. Lisa sat in a chair in the center of the room, connected to several pieces of medical equipment. Thin wires attached to her temples and her neck ran to a large machine that looked like something between a computer and a complicated medical device. "Are you ready?" Dr. Cooper asked. He stood beside the machine, his hand hovering over the controls. Ryan Foster stood on the other side of the room, watching carefully to make sure that no one would disturb them. Lisa nodded, though she was terrified. She was terrified of what they were about to do. She was terrified that it might not work. But most of all, she was terrified of what would happen if they did nothing. The Valorians were planning something big. She could feel it in the way that Kes looked at her now, with a mixture of anger and calculation. They had decided that direct mind control was not working well enough on Lisa, so they were planning something else. "Something worse. Begin," Lisa said. Dr. Cooper activated the machine. The device had been designed by him and his small team of engineers over the past 2 days. It was not perfect. It was not even entirely tested. But it was their best chance. The machine would generate a counter-frequency to the one that the Valorians used to control human minds. In theory, this frequency would disrupt the alien connection without causing any damage to Lisa's brain. In theory. Lisa gasped as she felt something change inside her head. The sensation was not painful, but it was strange and uncomfortable. It felt like someone was turning up the volume on a radio until the static became louder than any real sound. The presence that had been living inside her mind for so long suddenly became confused and disoriented. For a moment, it seemed like the alien consciousness did not know what was happening. It did not understand how its own technology could be turned against it. Then the presence began to pull away. It was like watching a tide go out at rapid speed. The weight that Lisa had carried in her head for so long became lighter and lighter. She could feel the connection breaking, strand by strand, like a rope being cut inch by inch. With a final surge of the counter-frequency, the alien consciousness was completely severed from her mind. Lisa gasped and opened her eyes. For the first time in 10 days, her mind was completely and totally her own. The presence was gone. It was not hiding. It was not lying dormant. It was gone. "How do you feel?" Dr. Cooper asked, moving quickly to Lisa's side to check her vital signs. "Like I have been reborn," Lisa said, tears streaming down her face. "Like I can breathe again." "Good," Dr. Cooper said with a tired smile. "Because we have a lot of work to do and we do not have much time." Over the next 18 hours, Lisa and her team worked frantically in secret. They had discovered that there were 17 other crew members who had been touched by the Valorians and had undergone some level of mind control. Some were controlled completely, like Lisa had been. Others had only received minor suggestions that they could still resist. One of them was Marcus Hall, the weapons officer. His position made him incredibly dangerous if the Valorians could control him, and also incredibly valuable if they could free him. Each crew member was brought to the hidden laboratory under the pretense of a routine medical examination. Each one underwent the same process that Lisa had undergone, and each one emerged with their mind back under their own control. Some of them did not believe what had happened to them at first. Some of them were angry and confused. All of them were grateful to be themselves again. Ryan Foster monitored the ship's systems to make sure that the Valorians did not discover what was happening. He created false reports and fake schedules to keep the aliens distracted. He was nervous every moment, afraid that something would go wrong, that Kes would discover their plan and take control of the ship before they could finish what they had started. Captain Marcus Hall was the last to be treated. His case was the most delicate because if the Valorians became suspicious and tried to activate any kind of failsafe that they might have built into his consciousness, things could become very bad very quickly. But when Dr. Cooper activated the counter-frequency, Marcus's mind was freed just as all the others had been. The weapons officer opened his eyes and looked at Lisa with complete understanding. He did not need to be told what had happened to him. He remembered everything. "They were going to use me to blow up the ship's defenses," Marcus said quietly. "I could feel it. I could feel them planning it." "Not anymore," Lisa said. "You are free." Now came the most dangerous part of the plan. Lisa had to face Kes and pretend that the mind control was still active. She had to convince the Valorian that she and everyone else were still completely under his power. She had to get close enough to him that they could take him into custody without the alien calling for reinforcements from his ship. Lisa went to the conference room where Kes was, waiting with several other Valorians. She entered with her head bowed slightly, trying to look like someone whose will had been broken. She tried to remember how she had acted when the control was strongest, how she had moved like someone operating on automatic, how her thoughts had seemed to come from outside her own body. "Commander Monroe," Kess said, his eyes studying her carefully, "I am pleased to see you. I have been concerned that my attempt to deepen our connection may have damaged your mind. I'm relieved to find that you are still functional." "The connection is very strong," Lisa said, making her voice sound flat and empty. "I am ready to serve the Valorian cause completely." Kess stood and approached her. For a moment, Lisa's heart raced. If he touched her, if he tried to make another connection, he would immediately feel that she was free. But instead, Kess simply studied her face for a long moment. "You will come with me to our ship," Kess said finally. "There we will begin the next phase of the operation. You and your crew will help us coordinate the peaceful surrender of Earth to Valorian authority. Resistance will be minimal, and billions of lives will be spared from the suffering of free will." "Of course," Lisa said. She gestured for him to follow her. "My shuttle is ready whenever you wish." As they walked through the corridors of the Galileo, Lisa could feel Ryan and the others moving into position. This was the moment. This was when everything would be decided. They entered the shuttle bay and Kess moved toward the shuttle. But before he could step inside, the lights suddenly flashed red. Alarms began to sound throughout the bay. Ryan's voice came over the speakers. "All Valorians remain where you are. You are now in custody of the human Space Force." Kess spun around to face Lisa, his eyes flashing with anger and betrayal. "You," he hissed. "Your mind is free." "Yes," Lisa said, her voice strong and clear. "My mind is free, and so is the mind of everyone you tried to control. You underestimated us, Kess. You underestimated the strength of the human mind. You assumed that we were simple creatures who could be easily broken, but we are more complex than that. We adapt, we resist, we survive." Kess's hand moved toward his side, where he was carrying some kind of weapon. But before he could draw it, security officers in full protective gear entered the bay and surrounded the Valorians. There was no violence. There was no need for it. The aliens were too outnumbered, and they seemed too stunned by what had happened to put up a real fight. As the Valorians were being escorted away, Kess caught Lisa's eye one more time. His expression showed something that might have been respect or might have been fear. Perhaps it was both. Lisa called a meeting of the ship's senior officers in the main conference room. Everyone who had been freed from mind control was there, along with Dr. Cooper and the crew members who had never been touched by the Valorians. She stood at the head of the table and addressed them all. "Today we have won a victory," Lisa said. "But it is not just a victory over the Valorians. It is a victory for the human spirit. We have proven that we cannot be conquered by force or by technology. We cannot be broken by power or by control. We are free, and that freedom is the most valuable thing that we possess." Ryan raised his glass. "To humanity," he said. "To our freedom." Everyone raised their glasses and repeated the words. The Galileo filled with the sound of voices celebrating not just their survival, but the triumph of the human will. Later, Lisa stood in the observation deck and watched as the Valorian ship left Earth's orbit. It did not leave in shame or in defeat. Instead, Kess had negotiated an agreement. The Valorians would share their medical technology with humanity. In exchange, humanity would keep what had happened secret and allow the Valorians to leave without threat. It was not the victory that some people had hoped for, but it was the victory that Lisa had chosen. She knew that Earth was not ready for a war with an alien species. She knew that this peaceful resolution, though it came with a cost, was the best outcome for her people. Lisa thought about the journey she had taken over the past 10 days. She thought about the moment when she had felt so lost and so alone inside her own mind. She thought about the moment when she had broken free. She thought about the strength that she had. 3 weeks had passed since the Valorian ship left Earth's orbit. The Galileo was slowly making its way back to Earth, carrying with it the most important cargo in human history. In the cargo hold, carefully stored in protective containers, was the Valorian medical technology. Dr. Henry Cooper had already begun preliminary analysis of the technology, and the results were beyond anything the best human minds could have imagined. Diseases that had plagued humanity for thousands of years could be cured. Injuries that had once meant a lifetime of disability could be healed completely. Life expectancy could potentially be doubled, maybe even tripled. But Lisa Monroe was not thinking about any of these things as she sat alone in her quarters late at night. She was thinking about what she had learned about herself. She was thinking about the moment when she had stared into the darkness of her own mind and found something that she did not know was there. She was thinking about strength. There was a soft chime at her door. Lisa looked at the clock and saw that it was almost midnight. She was not expecting anyone. She stood and opened the door to find Ryan Foster standing in the corridor. He looked tired. His uniform was wrinkled and he had not shaved in a few days, but his eyes were clear and concerned. "I'm sorry for coming so late," Ryan said, "but I wanted to check on you. You have been spending a lot of time alone lately." "Come in," Lisa said, stepping aside so Ryan could enter her quarters. They sat across from each other in the small living area. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lisa asked the question that had been bothering her since the moment she had been freed from the alien control. "Do you think I am still the same person, Ryan? Do you think I am still the same Lisa Monroe that you knew before all of this happened?" Ryan considered the question carefully. He did not answer right away. Instead, he said, "I think you are more yourself than you have ever been. When you were under Kess's control, you were someone else. You were a puppet. But now that you are free, I see more strength in you than I have ever seen before. You are the same person, Lisa, but you are also more. You are more aware of what you are capable of. You are more aware of your own power." "I have nightmares," Lisa admitted. "Every night I dream about that feeling of being trapped inside my own head. I dream about being helpless. I dream about watching myself do things that I did not want to do." "That will fade," Ryan said gently. "Not today and not tomorrow, but eventually. You survived something terrible. The fact that it still affects you is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of how much you care about who you are." After Ryan left, Lisa lay in her bed and tried to sleep, but sleep did not come easily. Her mind kept returning to certain moments from the past few weeks. She kept thinking about the moment when Kess had touched her forehead and tried to reinforce his control. She kept thinking about the pain and pressure inside her head when the counter frequency was activated. She kept thinking about the look in Kess's eyes when he realized that she had broken free. The next morning, Lisa received an urgent message from Dr. Cooper. He asked her to meet him in the medical bay as soon as possible. When she arrived, she found him standing over a scanning device studying data that was displayed on a large screen. His face was troubled. "What is wrong?" Lisa asked. "We need to scan you," Dr. Cooper said. "I have been analyzing the data from the counter-frequency treatment, and I have found something that worries me. I want to make sure that there are no lasting effects from the alien consciousness that lived in your mind." Lisa submitted to a full medical scan. She lay in a large machine while Dr. Cooper monitored the results. The scan took almost an hour. When it was finished, Dr. Cooper helped her sit up and then showed her the results on his tablet. "Your brain shows some very interesting patterns," Dr. Cooper said, pointing to different areas of the scan. "The areas where the Valorian consciousness established itself have been altered, but not in a way that is harmful. Instead, it appears that your brain has actually become stronger in those areas. It is as if your mind built protective structures in response to the invasion. These structures are still there and they are making your neural connections more efficient." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. "It means that you are smarter now than you were before," Dr. Cooper said with a slight smile. "Not by a huge amount, but measurably so. Your ability to process information has increased. Your memory has improved. Your ability to concentrate and focus has become sharper. In a way, by trying to destroy your mind, Kess accidentally made it stronger." Lisa did not know how to feel about this revelation. Part of her was relieved to know that the invasion had not caused any permanent damage, but another part of her was disturbed by the idea that something about her had changed fundamentally. She was not entirely sure that she liked this new version of herself. Over the next week, Lisa began to notice the changes that Dr. Cooper had mentioned. She could solve problems faster. She could remember conversations word for word. She could see connections between different ideas that she had never noticed before. It was as if someone had turned up the volume on her intelligence. She was in the observation deck when Marcus Hall found her. The weapons officer looked like he had something important to say. "Commander," Marcus began, "I wanted to thank you for saving me. I wanted to thank you for saving all of us. But I also wanted to tell you something else. I have been reviewing the data from when we were under Valorian control, and I have discovered something important." "What is it?" Lisa asked. "The Valorians kept detailed records of their attempts to control us," Marcus explained. "They kept data on every person they tried to influence and every person they succeeded in controlling. But more than that, they kept records of something else. They kept records of other species they have tried to control. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. What other species? Dozens, Marcus said grimly. Over the past 200 years, the Valorians have encountered at least 30 other intelligent species. According to their records, they successfully conquered and enslaved 28 of them. But 2 species refused to be controlled. 2 species managed to resist the Valorians even when the aliens used the most advanced technology available to them. And now we are the 3rd, Lisa said softly. Yes, Marcus confirmed. According to the Valorian records, the only species that have ever successfully resisted their mind-controlled technology are species whose minds are somehow fundamentally different from what the Valorians expected, species that have levels of adaptability and resilience that the aliens had never encountered before. Lisa returned to her quarters and thought about what Marcus had told her. She thought about all the other species that had been conquered by the Valorians. She thought about the billions of lives that had been enslaved. And she thought about the 2 species that had managed to resist before humans ever encountered the aliens. She realized something important. Humanity had not won against the Valorians because they had the best technology. They had not won because they had the strongest weapons. They had won because of something more fundamental than any of those things. They had won because the human mind had qualities that were unique in the galaxy. Qualities like creativity, qualities like the ability to adapt, qualities like resilience, qualities like hope. Lisa opened a secure channel to Earth. She requested a connection with the leaders of all the major nations of the world. When the connection was established, she began to speak. People of Earth, Lisa said, her voice steady and confident. I want to tell you about what happened on the Galileo. I want to tell you about an attempt to control us. I want to tell you about the power of the human mind to resist, to fight back, and to triumph. For the next hour, Lisa told the story of what had happened. She told them about the Valorians. She told them about her own experience of being controlled. She told them about the discovery that the human mind could build defenses against alien technology. She told them about the liberation of 17 crew members. She told them about the confrontation with Kess, and most importantly, she told them about what it meant for the future of humanity. We are not alone in the galaxy, Lisa said. There are other species out there. Some of them are peaceful, like we wish to be, but others have intentions that are far from peaceful. They will try to conquer us. They will try to control us. They will try to make us into slaves. But we have learned something important today. We have learned that the human mind is stronger than any technology designed to control it. We have learned that we can stand together against any threat. We have learned that we are worthy of our freedom. As Lisa finished speaking, she could see tears on the faces of people watching her on the screens. People all over Earth were listening to her words. People were understanding what had happened and what it meant for them. Ryan entered her quarters as she was ending the broadcast. He had been watching from another part of the ship. He looked at Lisa with an expression that mixed pride with something that looked like awe. That was incredible, Ryan said simply. You just changed the way the entire world thinks about itself. Lisa shook her head. I did not do that. The people of Earth did that. They did it by refusing to give up. They did it by standing together. They did it by being human. As the Galileo continued its journey back to Earth,